Shemai guys and girls, JonnyVR here back with my Doctor Who reviews, and I'm reviewing the 6th episode of Series 12 called Praxeus today. Before we get into it, got a little bit of an announcement to make. First of all, I just want to say a huge thank you for everyone who watched the previous video. Got 1,000 views overnight, and then by the end of this week it got to nearly 2,000 views. So first of all, thanks very much for all those views. If you're a new subscriber as well, welcome to the channel. And I was told by Mr. Shaq himself that once we get to 1,000 subscribers on this channel, we'll be doing a giveaway, and we'll be giving away Comic-Con tickets to one of the conventions that we'll be going to this year. So you can meet up with us, say hi, and enjoy a convention for free. So if that sounds good to you and you're watching this maybe, for the first time maybe, click subscribe, check out the rest of the stuff on this channel. We do a lot of convention stuff as well. So yeah, that's the quick announcement. The subscribe button is down there. And as always, the first part of this review will be spoiler free, and then I'll go into spoiler territory and give you a spoiler warning. So, the 6th episode, Praxeus, how does it do, you know? Because there was a lot of explosive stuff happened in the last episode, and we do have, it hinted that it was going to be continued in this episode because the way the last episode ended, you start seeing why, what's going to happen in this episode, in the previous episode. Does it continue from the last story with regards to reveals and things like that? And it's pretty much on its own, which is sort of surprising given that Chris Chibnall has co-written this episode as well. So the fact that it doesn't really continue with anything sort of story arc related, at least not obviously to my knowledge, is pretty much almost on its own. So, does it, is it a good episode? I think so. I think it's a good episode. It's solid, it's strong, but there's a few things that I want to say about it that will have to be done in the spoiler section. But I don't know about you watching this episode. I did have some Orphan 55 flashbacks in this episode. But do not worry, because it's not as bad as Orphan 55, and that's that's pretty much how we're judging this series. Is it as bad as Orphan 55? No, it's solid. It's solid. You got a good, strong cast of characters. You get some good twists, like within the main context of the story. Companions get a decent amount to do this episode. And I think it's very good. I think if you watched any of the trailers for Praxeus, like the Next Time trailer or the Coming Soon trailer or the midweek trailer they showed, and if you were asking to yourself, what is Praxeus? Like, what does that even mean? It's probably right, because what I guessed what it was turned out to be true. So you're probably right if you guessed the same. But it's a good story, and it's high stakes, and it does raise the stakes, for the planet, not just for one area. What I will say as well, when I say the planet, I mean the planet. There's like 4 different locations in this, and it has a lot of feels of Spyfall in that aspect, because Spyfall went to loads of different places, and it had these cards where they say where they ended up, and to that end, it's really cool. I like it when they do this. I liked it when they did it in Spyfall. They went to a bunch of other countries, and they really made it into the story. They do something very similar here, and they go to a lot of different places. Maybe it's not like the actual place. They didn't actually go to all these places to film, but they made it look like these places, and that really gives it the sense of a worldwide threat. And it really makes me feel happy, that they're using the TARDIS to go to other places, not just England. And you get a really good, strong cast, and I think the cast in this episode is the best thing about this episode, and I'll go into that in more detail in the spoiler-free section, which I'm going to go into now. So if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it, come back and see what I think about the actual episode in itself, and make sure you come back to see what I've scored it at the end as well. So here's your spoiler warning, and here we go. So the episode starts off with a classic Earth shot, and a bit of a monologue. But when I first saw the Earth shot, I was like, oh, this is really good. We haven't seen an Earth shot in a while. Like at the beginning of an episode, it reminds me a lot of the Russell T Davies era, when he used to have the Earth shot, and then he used to zoom in down to an alarm clock, for Rose or something like that. But yeah, it was good to see an Earth shot, and then you see this spaceship appear out of nowhere, and that really sets the scene. You get to see the spaceship crash. You get introduced to a lot of characters. The first one is this guy Adam Lang, who's the spaceship guy. Not so long after, you get introduced to this guy Jake, who's like a police officer on a sabbatical, sort of, yes or no, but presumably because he has a lot of problems, and he does this a lot throughout the episode. You can see that coming through. The first problem is that he's an alcoholic, and you can see him in the pub, but that's where he sees the news. It's good to see BBC News here. I'm pretty sure the voice for BBC News is one that my stepdad listens to on BBC Radio 4, I think, but it's good to see them using those presenters. And then we go to Peru, and that's the first big sort of area, Peru, and you get introduced to these two girls, Gabriella and Jamila. Really cool way of adding diverse cast like they want to. Like, you can obviously tell that Gabriella's Brazilian, she's wearing a Brazilian shirt, and Jamila, not too sure, but she doesn't get much time to make a difference in this episode, because basically they go camping, they're vloggers, and they end up camping next to Peru's most beautiful river, but then you find out that it's actually a dump, because what is this natural landscape is now completely covered in rubbish. And this was the first time that I had an Orphan 55 flashback. I was like, okay, where are we going with this now? Because at first I was like, I see, I thought it was going to be, obviously it's a reference to what they want to say, like they did in Orphan 55. They see in the plastic everywhere and the rubbish, but, it moved on quickly from that. It did move on quickly from that. They did camp there in the end, and then Jamila wakes up in the night, gets killed by a bird or something, or this bird. It's implied that it's the birds, and they are very creepy, and they do. When we see them in the light, they're very creepy as well. So yeah, it's good. She doesn't make it past this scene, so that's when we get introduced to Ryan, who just shows up in Peru, like, again, using the typical thing of this series of not using the TARDIS a lot. Just, you're supposed to imply that they got there. And then we cut to Hong Kong, and Jake, who's gone to find Adam, having received a text from him, has gone to Hong Kong, where he meets up with Graham and Ryan. Again, don't see the TARDIS, they just show up. We're supposed to assume that they go there. Again, but like that's what we get. That's what we got to push the story along in like 4 different places, but it's cool. But we do get to see the TARDIS go around quite a bit later on, so I'm okay with that. And then they sort of go into this place with Jake, and so you end up getting these partnerships. Okay, so you got Ryan with Gabriella, you got Jake with Jake with Yaz and Graham, and then we cut to Madagascar is the third place, and the doctor immediately comes in saying she needs help, and there's someone who's washed up in the ocean, turns out to be the astronaut Adam Lang, and she also calls to help these 2 other people. One of them is called Suki. I couldn't remember the other one's name, and that's a problem that I thought it was similar with Orphan 55, but it run the risk of doing the same thing where they introduce too many characters into an episode of the show and make them unmemorable. And this happened in Orphan 55, and I had no idea what was going on. There was way too many characters. There's already 4 main characters, the Doctor and the 3 companions, but when you start adding so many more characters into one episode, it runs the risk of being very bad. But for the most part, this episode does a very good job of handling a lot of characters, which is really good considering where I think they're going with this. Now, I can't remember the guy's name, but I remember Suki's name because she plays a lot more of the part in it. The guy unfortunately gets killed by birds, which is okay because he didn't get a lot to do much apart from say hello, and he doesn't really influence the plot in any way. He gets killed by the birds. He literally gets relegated to keeping watch duty, and that's where he meets his demise. So again, with his death and with Jamila's death at the hands of the birds, you start trimming down the cast a bit, which is probably for the best. But yeah, that's where they all end up. Yaz and Graham and Jake, they're in Hong Kong still. They get to meet these gas masked villains like, are you my mummy? Nope, because they're not anything to do with that. But they find this source of the energy. That's what they are tracking. And Graham has a really funny scene with this thing that presumably the doctor gave them to track the energy source. And he's like, the energy source is coming from that room there. And then Yaz turns it, he's holding it upside down. And it, like, without like trying to rescue it, like, he's like, no, it's behind this door here. Really funny scene, really funny scene. Graham, Bradley Walsh does a really good job as Graham in this scene. But they've teamed up with Jake, and they find the source of the energy, and they see Adam Lang, who's all hooked up to this weird thing. The gas mask creatures come very quickly into this then, and they start firing their guns, which is really cool. It's good to see them hesitant when Yaz holds up the energy source. Like, it's important. It's clever. It's quick thinking from Yaz, and it works. To give them time for to get Adam Lang out. And then they got a really cool chase scene where they escape and they're being fired at. Yes, they have bad aim, but that's taken for granted at this point. But then what I was shocked then is that the point where Jake grabs one of the guns, or no, first of all, he like manages to kick one of these gas mask people. He managed to disarm him with his gun, and without hesitation shoots him like 3 or 4 times, dead. And then he tells the others to duck, and he manages to shoot the other one as well. Now, when that happened, I was like, wow, ruthless, really ruthless. And like that scene makes him look like he doesn't even hesitate, disarms, shoots. Like, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I kind of like that. Because that's the thing. One of the key things I think why they introduced this character is because he's like unstable policeman, alcoholic, gambler, or the lot, and and it's like he doesn't get a chance. Like he's not under the jurisdiction of the doctor. He doesn't get told what to do by the doctor at this point. Later on, she does take the gun away from him, but at that point, he's on his own, and there's no. No filter, he just goes for it. And it was good to see a weapon being fired by someone who's considered one of the good guys in this series. Straight up kills one of them and injures the other one. Then what else do we have? We have Gabriella and Ryan finding her friend Jamila. She's in a lab somewhere in a quarantine zone, and they lift her up. She's got this weird thing on her face. I think the whole thing on the faces and the arms is really creepy. But when they actually die, they explode, but it's like they explode, and that's a little bit like I think it's a tiny bit funny more than scary, but the convulsions that they have, when they're actually about to die, and then they're retching and convulsing, it was pretty cool. And yeah, so at this point then people start meeting up with each other. People start seeing who's who. You get the doctor sort of coming back with everybody who they've been in contact with, some sort of thing that's in their neck the whole time. It's good. It explains how they actually keep in contact. And Ryan gets a good chat with Gabrielle in the TARDIS. He's had quite a few calming talks, because with people who've gone into the TARDIS and been overwhelmed with it. So I think he's done a really good job this series of being the guy that everyone talks to. It fills out his character a little bit more, I think, that he's very good at talking to people like who are overwhelmed with the prospect of the TARDIS. Gabrielle, I think, is hilarious. You know, when they're in Hong Kong, when they go to Hong Kong to see Yaz and Jake and all that, she's like, I want to go with Yaz because Yaz wants to go back in for the energy source that they didn't manage to grab, and she's like, I want to fight something. You know, really cool, really funny. It's good to see the Doctor not being happy with Yaz going back in there and giving them 1 hour. You know, very stern. And then she goes back in there, all fine. The one who Jake injured with when he shot him managed to teleport away, and Yaz and Gabrielle quickly follow. And I think as well, Gabrielle in like all of this episode, she's like, her reactions to things is totally brilliant. Okay, so there's the reaction when she finds Jamila and, you know, she's dying. She looks terrified. She looks horrified. But then at every moment when she's looking at, I don't know, Ryan or Yaz, like, and Yaz is like, let's go follow them. Let's just go wherever this teleport is going to go. She says like, you're crazy, you know that. So she's like total common sense, very well written, and yeah, very, very cool. Then you get a really funny moment where Ryan's like gets to dissect one of the birds that he picked up. Graham is used to have a heart-to-heart with Jake, find out that Jake's married to Adam, and they have a whole dynamic there, and it's really good to see Jake, who's sort of this emotionless character, or not emotionless, but like struggling with his emotions clearly, struggles with his talking aspect and, you know, getting things out there. It's really good to see. He does a really good job of playing a man who's having an emotional chat as a man who isn't really very emotional. Yeah, really cool. And then they find out that when they take a blood sample from Adam, that what's causing all this death is a microorganism, a pathogen, a disease in the blood, and it's an alien pathogen. And it turns out that the pathogen is feeding on plastic, which is, again, you can see where this is going. It's going into the territory of like climate change. It's sending a message to the audience, but it does so in a way that is better in this episode. Like Orphan 55 just threw it in your face. This episode, it tells the message, but it doesn't tell you the message like Orphan 55 does. It's very much on its own. Like, and the thing is, they made hints to it earlier on in the episode with the plastic, and then they didn't really make reference to it at all until now. And then they reference it a lot towards the end of the episode. But like it's earned, like it's sort of a tease, and then it becomes a main story point. So now that we've established that the plastic is the problem, and the ocean is, or the submarine and the sort of this ship or whatever they end up in under the sea is covered in, you know, the ocean surface is covered in plastic. Get a good shot of that, actually. There's a lot of plastic shots in this episode that was quite, I think they did it quite well. And then they have the plastic thing, and then they find out that the microfilters filter in microplastics, and apparently microplastics are everywhere, so we're all in danger of this microorganism bacteria thing that can feed on plastic. And apparently the birds are the ones that are giving it around, like, because if they scratch you, you'll get it and then you'll die. So again, it's all a bit like as you'd expect. The Praxeus is actually the disease. So if you thought that it was a disease from the trailer, you were absolutely right. So it's not so surprising what Praxeus actually means. Nice to see her thinking about autons with all this plastic, but not, you know, obviously ultimately it doesn't end up being that. One interesting point that I think Graham picked up on as well was when she said, "Come on, brains work," and then he's like, "Brains?" Like, again, is this another way of like saying something new to Doctor Who, like she's got two brains, or is that like something that's been established before? I can't remember, but who knows at this point, because all of Doctor Who history is at stake with Chris Chibnall writing, as many people have pointed out after the last episode. Yeah, they do some weird thing. They try and find a vaccine or a cure. I'm not sure the science behind it, but she mentioned something about enzymes, and I'm like, how is enzymes going to deal with this bacteria? Do you know what an enzyme does? Is this, the scientist in me is thinking, yeah, how are you going to do that? How long are you going to, have this thing for? You're going to have more human trials and stuff like that, and any bad side effects. But like, obviously, I overlook this. It's fine. They get a cure. They test it on the thing on Adam Lang, who's infected with it, and lo and behold, it works. We find out that Suki is actually a villain, or not the villain, but like a misunderstood person, sort of. She's ends up being playing into this a bit more because Yaz finds out that there's 3 of the labs. So the one was in Hong Kong, there's another one in Madagascar, and one underneath the Indian Ocean. So when the doctor finds out, she knows something's up, and Suki then knows that she's been found out, and so she ends up teleporting away. And then the birds start attacking the base. They start running on sand. So if anyone was thinking, like, watching that, oh my gosh, running on sand is so hard, I'm feeling for them. Yeah, I was thinking that too, because if you run on sand, it's hard. But yeah, they get to the TARDIS. The birds' animations were pretty cool. I think it was funny though that the birds' animations were really cool, and when they attack the TARDIS, like swarm around the TARDIS, it's all looking very good. But when you get like one against the window or one on the perched on a fence overlooking everything, it's very funny, like because you can see that the ones you can tell where it's actually like a prop and when it's actually a CGI. But yeah, it works. It's good. It was one of the shots that actually was shown a lot in the trailers way back in November. But yeah, it's a good. They're good and they escape all very well and good. The plastic is in the birds, and that's why they get infected. So anyway, they end up underneath the Indian Ocean. They find this place. I'm still not sure what it is, the actual place, like, because it's like it ends up being like a ship or something. The Suki ship crash landed, and like I couldn't tell whether it was actually built or whether it was built out of the disease, because they find out that the gas mask people actually have the disease as well, and it's affecting them slower because they're a different species. But the actual building that they're in, it's not like a base, or it is a base, but it's made out of the Praxeus disease or something like that. I couldn't tell. I missed that part, but either way, it makes for a good setup. It's really cool. Carries on the sort of one of the things in this series where we get to see quite a few alien spaceships, which or sort of not alien as the Doctor says, but like it looks like an alien spaceship. So like it's good to see that. Really cool. And Yaz is noticeably disappointed when it isn't an alien planet or a spaceship. So but it does make you think that there's something alien at work there, whether or not it's an alien spaceship or not. But we find Suki again, and she's happy because now they've got the cure. And the Doctor questions her, and it's a really interesting conversation, I think, because they use the Earth as a like a petri dish, as they say, like an experiment, because the Praxeus disease was wiping out all of her own race, her own alien race, and they came to Earth because of the plastic and because the microorganism is feeding on the plastic, and that's how it spreads. So it's good that they see that the plastic, in this case, it's not like it's being used by for manipulation by another alien species. It's not like it's just there. It's a plot point that I can accept, because yes, it's there, and then so it's a problem that we've caused, but it's an immediate problem. It's like right now. So I can accept that, whereas Orphan 55 was like, this is going to be a problem if you don't change your ways. Now they're saying basically that it's a problem and Earth is at stake now because of it. And yes, although it's handled a lot better than Orphan 55. Like this one was watchable. It was very easy to follow all the way through, and given that it has like 4 different locations in it and has lots of moving around and lots of characters for one episode, it does a really good job. But ultimately Suki dies because she's given herself the vaccine, but it doesn't work on her because she's an alien species and the vaccine was designed for humans, so she's gone. and they have to distribute the vaccine or the cure by using Suki's spaceship to blast it out to the planet, whatever. Now, this is the thing. One of the other things I thought about this episode is that the when they're all in the spaceship, they're talking like techno-babble, like you have to assume that the Doctor's told them all what to do. Otherwise, it just looks like they all know exactly how to fly this alien spaceship and what everything does. So, you know, it would have been nice to see the Doctor like organize them all, like, you know, do that there, you do that there. But again, I guess runtime is a tiny bit of a problem here. But you know, they find out that they can't, they either have to fly it manually, in which case the ship will explode and they all die, or they have to set it to autopilot and leave. They do that, but autopilot fails. So, would you believe it, Jake is the one who has a redemptive arc in this episode. He's the one who gets back in the spaceship and starts flying it up. Yes, he's never flown an alien spaceship before, but it does have an establishing point where he's like figuring it out, and the Doctor, he's telling the Doctor, oh, it's basically up, down, left, and right. So, you know, it's established. He flies up there, and I was like, oh no, he was such a cool character, and now they're going to kill him off, and it's going to be really emotional. And this is another thing, okay, because people have a thing against this series and against Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, that she lets people die. And it makes you think that she's going to do it again. It makes you think, when I was watching it, I was like, oh no, everyone's going to rant about this, that she just totally just left him to die. But no, that's not the case. She does manage to save him, and she does the TARDIS materialization thing, which is great. And they do it in a really cool way, that you see it from his perspective, and he's very quick, like the TARDIS appearing around him at the very last minute. Really cool, really cool. Good to see the Doctor saving that, and I'm glad, because this is what I think is the main point of the episode. It's a good episode, it's solid performances from everyone all around, but I honestly think that when it ends with Jake, Adam and Gabriella on Madagascar Beach, it stinks of spin-off, you know, or at the very least a return to the show. You know, he says, we'll take the planet from here. Gabrielle says, come visit us sometime. So it's obvious that they're going to come back in some way, shape or form. And I am looking forward to that, because I think I loved Gabrielle's character. She's totally crazy. You know, she was cautious. She was speaking like truth and sense everywhere. She's very flirtatious with Ryan at the very beginning. Jake, I think, as an unstable cop who like is an alcoholic and a gambler and ruthlessly murdered one of the aliens in this episode when he was not in check by the Doctor. And you know, that those three, I think, could hold a spin-off, and I think that's why Chris Chibnall has co-written this episode, not because it continues the arc, but because it does set something up, whether it's a return in a future episode or a completely spin-off on its own, who knows. But that, I think the reason why Chris Chibnall gets the credit is because he's introducing these characters. I think these characters are going to be very important. I'm looking forward to seeing them again. Really cool, because I really want to see Jake shoot more aliens, because that would be awesome. So that's pretty much the episode. There's not much continuation of the main story here, but next week's episode looks really good. If you saw the Next Time trailer, there was some really weird, like, three-clawed alien hand that looked utterly like terrifying. So I really hope that it continues the Series 12 trend of having good creature design. So that's it. That's the episode. It's a good episode. How am I going to put this? Now, after I finish all the reviews, I'm definitely going to do a hindsight review when I look at the entire series, because like, I did rate Orphan 55 a little high, and I think I did rate the last one a little low, because I went and rewatched that one and I did think it was very good. So at the end of this run, I'm going to do a separate video, probably a long one, to talk about the whole series and probably adjust a few scores. But for now, I'm going to give Praxeus, I'm going to give it a 7.3. So just about on par with Fugitive of the Jadoon, not quite as good as Spyfall Part 2. Again, subject to change. I'll do a hindsight review, but I'm sticking with it for now because it was better than All for 55, and that's all you need to know. So there we go. That's my review. Thanks very much for watching, and make sure you tune in next week for the review of the 7th episode. And also, if you haven't already, click subscribe because we are doing a giveaway for Comic-Con tickets when we reach 1,000 subs. Make sure you like us on Facebook as well, because that's where we post a lot of our updates and things like that. So get it done. Thanks very much for watching one more time. I'll see you next week. Bye.